Fellas, I think 2023 has been a great year for the UFC, or just MMA in general, for multiple reasons. I'll be going over them why in this video. It's going to be a bit of a breakdown of the year of 2023 and what it's done for the sport of MMA and the company of the UFC. Let me know what you think of the year, because personally, like I said, I think it's been a great year. I think a lot has happened this year that a lot of people have kind of forgotten about, and it's just been a really impactful year. So we'll start off with the first reason why I think it's been a great year, and that is because we've had one of the most unexpected title lineages ever. Like, to go from, I'm going to, talk about these two first of all, Sean Strickland and Sean O'Malley. I mean, it's been the year of the Seans, hasn't it? From Sean Strickland to go on a 2-fight losing streak against Cannonier and Pereira to somehow become champion as well. I just feel like that's crazy. I never expected Strickland to become a champion. I feel like he would have kind of just wafted around the top 5 to top 10 area. But to become a champion, especially for the fact that he beat Israel Adesanya in one of the biggest upsets ever. I'll get into that in the next point. But yeah, to beat Israel Adesanya and the fact that he's champion, and obviously Sean O'Malley, listen, I'm going to have to give him credit. Coming into the Yan fight, and I know that was last year, but coming into the Yan fight, I never give this guy credit. I thought it was going to get demolished by Yan. He's just this, pink-haired star. And then he beats Yan. It was a controversial decision. Then he fights Aljamain Sterling. Okay, Sterling's going to maul him. Sterling's got him. And then he knocks out Sterling. I mean, fair play to Sean O'Malley becoming champion. It was crazy. Alexa Grasso as well, beating Shevchenko. Shevchenko hadn't lost since 2017. I think it was against Amanda Nunes. So for her to end the winning streak of Valentina Shevchenko by submission was crazy. And then she didn't beat her in the rematch, but then to have a draw and keep the belt in the rematch, fair play to Alexa Grasso dethroning Valentina Shevchenko. We also had some big returns this year. We had John Jones return to become the heavyweight champion, which I think a lot of us expected, because he always hinted that he was going to come back, but we were kind of hoping it was going to be against Ngannou, because at the beginning of the year, Ngannou was champion only for like 2 weeks though. I did kind of wish it was Jones versus Ngannou, but the fact that he still became champion, fair play. Also, Tom Aspinall. Last year, the guy couldn't even walk. He couldn't even walk. He'd lost to Curtis Blades because of the leg injury. Couldn't even walk. And now he's the interim champion, or as I like to call it, the people's champion. And he's probably going to be the undisputed champion coming into 2024. Brandon Moreno as well, finally losing to someone outside of Davis and Figueiredo. I was kind of sick of seeing them fight 4 times, and then finally for a guy like Pantoja to not only win the belt but then go and defend it. I just feel like the title lineage this year has been great, and I feel like we're ended off the year with some pretty good champions. Like, I'm not going to be mad at this. A lot of them are entertaining as well, so I think the title lineage this year has been great. So that's the first reason why I think this year has been great. The champions that we've got and the title fights as well. Next reason is, I hinted at this at the beginning, the crazy upsets. How many upsets have we had this year? I've highlighted the major ones, but this year has just been, it's been so weird. We've had so many upsets. It feels like in 2023, we shouldn't be betting on fights anymore just because of how many upsets has been. I mean, we'll start with Whittaker and Dricus du Plessis. UFC 290, we had Dricus du Plessis, who was going life and death against Darren Till and Derek Brunson, against a guy like Whittaker, who was just kind of the guy that crushed all the contenders. To go out there and not only beat Whittaker, but finish him was crazy. Grasso, like I talked about before, Grasso ending Shevchenko's winning streak. Strickland going out there and beating Adesanya in one of the biggest upsets ever to become UFC champion. I still find that crazy, especially when Adesanya was coming off a fresh knockout over Pereira. I've said this before, I feel like Adesanya is so much more dangerous as when he's fighting for the belt rather than when he's defending it. I don't know why. He's shown it multiple times, but yeah, that was a shocking fight. Aljo and O'Malley said that as one as well. Gaethje and Poirier, Poirier beating him before. Poirier was coming off a dominant win over Michael Chandler. No one was really giving Gaethje credit, and then Gaethje goes out there and knocks him out cold. Which was, again, another shocking finish as well. And then, obviously, Adesanya and Pereira. I'm going to be honest, I'm not a massive fan of Adesanya, but I've got to give him respect. It was a good knockout, and it was a good win, so fair play to Adesanya. So I feel like this year, we've just had a lot of crazy upsets, and I feel like it's kind of swayed a lot of people away from betting on fights, because it's so difficult to bet on fights when we're getting upsets like this. A lot of them are at the top level as well. Like, I feel like previously, a lot of the upsets, and I know there's been a few like, Leon Edwards and Usman from last year, but I feel like a lot of the upsets previously were between kind of unranked fighters or kind of contenders, whereas it feels like this year, a lot of the upsets are right at the top. A lot of them tend to be title fights, or at least #1 contender fights, so that's one thing I can highlight about this year. We've had some crazy upsets, and yeah, it's been good. I feel like we're getting some unique fighters now. We're getting something different than the ordinary fighters. Like, I'm glad that we saw Strickland winning not just another ordinary Adesanya title fight, and it's kind of interesting to see Dricus back, and I'm kind of glad we saw that as well, because I didn't want to see Dricus versus Adesanya 3, so I'm glad that we've seen Strickland versus Duplessis. But either way, yeah, the upsets this year have been crazy. Next reason, we've had some memorable retirements. I mean, we had a few retirements last year. We had, obviously, Donald Cerrone at UFC 276, I think it was. Nate Diaz partially retired. I'm not sure if he's fully retired. I think he's going to be coming back. But, yeah, we've had some memorable retirements this year. Glover Teixeira, it wasn't a great retirement. It was memorable, but for the wrong reasons, because the Brazilian crowd, obviously, leaving before Glover could properly, do his retirement speech. But Glover Teixeira retiring right at the beginning of the year. We had Jorge Masvidal. Not really anyone, I don't see much people talking about this, but Masvidal retiring in Miami against Gilbert Burns, when it was quite weird, the Masvidal retirement, because only a few months previous to this, he was talking about how he's going to beat Colby Covington again in the octagon in 2023 or 2024, and then to do that and lose one fight and then instantly retire, this guy contradicts himself so much. But yeah, we had the Masvidal retirement. Korean Zombie, in one of the best retirements we've seen. It wasn't the best fight. I mean, the guy got slept and then retired. But the retirement, listen, the crowd was amazing, unlike Brazil. So we had Korean Zombie retire. Robbie Lawler, and I'm going to say this, Robbie Lawler, that might have been the greatest retirement I've ever seen. To go out there in front of a crowd that has your back, sleep your opponent quickly, and then go and have like a pre-made video retirement kind of highlight of, your time in the octagon shown to you on the big screen. That's like a pitch perfect retirement from Robbie Lawler in New York. I think it was UFC 290. And then Amanda Nunes in Canada, obviously, the GOAT of women MMA retiring. So this year we've had some big retirements. I've also put some honourable mentions. Kevin Lee, he made a comeback, got destroyed by Renat and then instantly retired again. We had Shogun Rua, obviously he's been there for ages. He retired. We had Fedor Emelianenko, and the reason I've put him in honourable mentions is because, listen, he's a Bellator fighter. He's not in the UFC, so it would be a bit weird to put him in the top, but Fedor Emelianenko, definitely one of the greatest of all time. He also retired this year after he lost, so I feel like this year we've definitely had some big retirements. I feel like we're going to see a lot of retirements coming into 2024 as well. I've already done a video predicting who's going to retire, but I feel like we're going to see another kind of round of top-level MMA fighters retiring. But these are the memorable ones I've got this year. So we've had some big retirements, and the next reason why 2023 has been a good year, I mean, it's kind of a mix. I've got a mix of different factors. The first factor is that we saw the rise of many prospects. How many prospects have kind of grown in the UFC this year? We've had Roman Kopylov, we've had Bo Nickel, we've had Dricus Duplessis as well, from going, just barely getting a win over a washed Darren Till to then now fighting for the belt is crazy. Shavkat Rakhmonov beat Jeff Neal and then goes out there and beats Wonderboy to kind of cement himself as one of the biggest contenders in the welterweight division. Joe Pyfer, he's been on a rise this year. He didn't obviously debut this year, but he's been on a rise. I mean, these aren't debuts, these are just the rise of contenders. Khamzat Chimaev as well. I'd say Khamzat, the problem with Khamzat is he's only fought once this year against Usman, but I mean, fair play for beating Usman. He's only like one fight away from a title shot now. So I feel like a lot of contenders this year we've seen. We've even got a couple of prospects that have debuted, like Sharaputin Magomedov. So we've just seen a lot of contenders and prospects, and we've had so many stacked cards this year. Listen, the UFC, say what you want, but we've been treated nicely this year. UFC 290, 291, 292 as well. I didn't even put this on one of the examples, but 292, 285, 296, 287. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I mean, we've had some stacked cards this year. Even the fight nights have been pretty stacked. The one we had with Arman Tsarukyan and Beneil Dariush, that's one of the most stacked fight nights we've had ever. So I feel like we've had so many stacked cards this year. I feel like we've seen the best versus the best a lot this year. Obviously, there's the whole discussion that, boxing doesn't do the best versus the best and MMA does. But I feel like this year, we've definitely seen the best versus the best a lot. We saw Volk versus Islam, which was the best featherweight versus the best lightweight, fight at lightweight. Aspinall and Pavlovich, the best versus the best. Both two massive contenders fighting each other. Yuri Prohaska and Alex Pereira. Pereira and Adesanya, the rematch as well. Yeah, so this year, there's just been so many examples of the best versus the best, and for that reason, I'm going to have to say it definitely brings up the year of 2023. Also, a lot of returns. We talk about the retirement, but I feel like we've also had a lot of returns as well. The return of John Jones after a few years, Henry Cejudo, like I said before, Kevin Lee returned, got battered and then retires again, which wasn't the best return. We're also supposed to see Stipe return again, but obviously got injured. And the last reason is that we've had multiple records set this year. We had the significant strike record from Jared Cannonier and Marvin Vettori. We had 2 slam knockouts back-to-back in, I forgot which card it was. Was it the Arman Sarukian card? I think it was. So we had a lot of, 2 slam knockouts back-to-back. Also the shortest average fight time given to Aspinall. The knockout one given to Derek Lewis. So there's just been a lot of records set. I feel like, I don't know if this is true or not, but I think we might have actually had the most MMA fights in most UFC fights in 1 year than any other. I don't know if that's an official record. It might be though. I'm not sure, but I'll have to check it out. But yeah, 2023, great year for MMA, great year for the UFC, and I feel like it's definitely been one of the best we've had. So yeah, I love 2023 so far in UFC. Let me know your thoughts on, let me know your personal thoughts on 2023 in terms of the UFC. But yeah, it's been a great year, and thank you for watching.